It's an Ask LOJ edition. Which of these players that we're watching right now are earning themselves roster spots in the NBA? Will kick off a loaded day of Ask LOJ next on Locked On Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Hope you're doing great. All right, today it's Ask LOJ Friday edition. You guys have loaded it up. We'll do points gained on Monday to kind of wrap up because it'll be the final points gained of the season. So no need to do it today. We'll do it when it's finally done and really delve into it a little bit, maybe even Tuesday. But on today's show, which guys we're watching are making impact and going to make themselves money in the NBA next year. Collin, Sexton, and Keyonte George. Do we believe that's a backcourt together? Does Keyonte's turnovers bother me? Was one of the questions. Then we move off of the Jazz into some big picture league items from the questions today. What stars do I think will ask to make themselves available in the offseason? What free agents are there that interest me? A bunch of questions on that. Who's the biggest threat to Denver and Boston in the playoffs, and what should Jazz fans be rooting for in the playoffs? So a fun Ask LOJ edition of Locked On Jazz. I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Give you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps, as well as on YouTube. Please subscribe. Please follow. Please hit the bell button on YouTube. Likes are great. Thumbs up are super. See, pinky's still not working for those on YouTube. This is weird. I'm doing the show in my hotel room, and for the season, I've been kind of putting up backgrounds on the show, and as everydayers know, and then people have kind of said that they don't like that, but I hate, I don't know. So I can't figure out what the right way to do the room is. So anyway, that's for those of you on YouTube. And those of you on audio, you don't have to worry about it, the originals. Thank you very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen. And to the everydayers, you're awesome. Super fun to wrap up the home season with a win last night. It is an honor and a privilege. And for 15 years, it's been amazing to be the radio voice of your team. And I cherish every single day in which I get to do it. The crowd last night was just awesome. It's what makes Jazz Nation different. 13-game losing streak. Crowd completely knew it, was totally into it, understood the value of that win, what it meant to the players. Will said it well afterwards that it was, meaningful to everyone. I'm blown away by the Jazz fans. It has been a real privilege to spend 15 years of my life fulfilling what was my childhood life dream, but it's been better because when you're a kid and you're just a Jazz fan, you don't actually know that Jazz fans are different. When you're growing up as a Jazz fan, as I did, I just, and then going to Jazz games, and then honestly opening my career in 92 as a reporter from 92 to 98 in Utah, I didn't travel the NBA at that point other than playoffs. So I thought everywhere was cool. Well, now that I have the luxury of traveling to 28 other arenas in the NBA, they're not all cool, right? It's a lot of really dead arenas. We played Houston last night. Their arena's dead. Their crowd's dead. We've had some weird games there where we were there for a Texan playoff game. It was super dead, but so that's not totally fair to them. But they have a lot of stuff going on in that city, right? They've got the Astros and they've got the Titans and they've got the University of Houston, and they've got a lot of stuff. And when your team kind of fades off, they fade with you. And that's a lot of places. I don't want to sit here and criticize all those places, but I would tell you, even San Antonio, the beloved San Antonio, single market town, that place has been pretty dead. Obviously we'll come back with Victor, but Jazz Nation is just different. And last night showed it. So, I think it's pretty great, and I appreciate it. And I try to put it through that lens whenever, the passion, I think, crosses the line of appropriate. I stop for myself and I'm like, the alternative's way worse. right? Like, it's kind of back to being a talk show host when they said, like, well, so if they hate you, that's not great. It's better if they love you. But if they don't care, that's the problem. And I feel that way a little bit about fandom. So, that fan that's nutty and crazy, wants everyone fired, everyone traded, I'm good with it. The fan, the reasonable, fan is fanatics, like that's lacking reasonable aspect of things. I'm good with it. So Jazz Nation, you're just awesome. I thank you for the 15 years I've had as your radio voice, and being able to do it. I've loved every minute of it, and I sincerely appreciate the support you guys have given me. I never forget either, by the way, just on a personal note, that I followed Hot Rod, right? I never forgotten that there's just a lot of you who forever I will not be sufficient. And that's cool because I'm not sufficient to myself. I still think I'm doing Hot Rod's job. And I understand that. I grew up listening to Hot Rod every day. Bill King was my favorite as a kid. It's funny. I went back-to-back nights. I went from the Bill King media room to the Hot Rod Hundley media room. I was like, wow, that is just crazy because those were my two guys as a kid. I get it. I'm fine with that. Actually, I actually don't want you to change your opinion on that. Like, I think that's the right opinion. I have the same one. So I just understand there's a lot of you that, like, forever, Hots is the guy, and it's hard to listen to someone else. And then there's the rest of you that I was actually talking to a close friend about this the other day, that, like, yeah, I'm beginning to understand and grasp that I'm 53 years old. And for many of you, like, I have been the voice that you've talked to. And I hope I've grown up enough and matured enough as someone to represent that well for you. I could get into a big, deep thing about me. This is more about me than I kind of wanted it to be, but that's not always been my strength. My dream kind of would be to just call games and not ever be public or anything. And I think I've grown to understand that for some of you, I got it. Like, if you're 40 years old, like, we've done this together since you were 25. I got it. And if you're 50, we've done it together since talk shows and it's awesome. I've kind of grown to grasp that. So thank you all. I appreciate it. It's been a wonderful run. I'm very satisfied with it, and very appreciative of all the things I've gotten to do in 15 years as your radio voices, 18 years of returning back to Salt Lake City. If we go back to 32 years of being with you, talking the NBA. So thank you. All right, let's get to it. That was not what I intended. Let's get to it. What are the Jazz players right now do you think are earning themselves roster spots next year for the NBA? I said this the other day on the show. I really am finding this kind of enjoyable to watch. Kenny Lofton Jr. last night with a fabulous game. Kenny Lofton Jr. is a really interesting case. Like, he has dominated the G League. He's dominated Summer League. He's done everything he can, and he's got to find a way to prove to everybody that he can be an NBA player. And he's obviously, he's still just 21 years of age. And he just hasn't really had shots, right? He got 24 games with Memphis his first year. He played about 7 minutes a game. He got, I think, about in the 19 games this year between Memphis. He had a little stint in Philadelphia, and he's getting another chance. And he's just a kid. Like, I think that's the one on Lofton. He's 21 years of age. There's obviously he's very heavy for an NBA player of his size. And so there's a lot of concern about his ability to move. On the other hand, like, he went to college crazy early at 18, and at 19 in his second year at La Tech, he averaged 17 points and 11 rebounds and 3 assists. Like, somebody on our chat was like, he's kind of almost Kelly Olynyk-esque, and he actually might be. Like, there's some aspect to that. So yeah, Kenny Lofton's really interesting. He's super skilled. The problem is he's not tall enough, right? He's 6'7", so he's 6'7", 275, which really makes him a center. He's not tall enough to be a center. And so he's got to figure out how you're going to play him. Like, you kind of say, oh, well, I can play him with Kelly. Yeah, Kelly Olynyk's 7 feet tall, 5 inches. So that's really the problem. And that's what you end up with a lot of these guys. Darius Bazley's doing really interesting things. Darius Bazley has been an impact defensively, and you can see Will gaining confidence in Bazley defensively. I mean, this was the 17th top recruit in 2008 in the NBA draft, coming out of college, and then he doesn't go to college, or coming out of high school, he doesn't go to college, and he gets drafted 23rd, actually by the Jazz. He started 119 games in the NBA. He's got a lot of NBA experience, and it shows. Now, there's the issue, right? He's 30% three-point shooter and less good this year in limited time. And can he figure out how to shoot? He's 6'8", 210. You can't find that body. He's playing well defensively. He's lanky and long, but I don't feel like he's weak He's kind of active and involved in the rebounding a little bit. Last night he had 7. The night before he had 5. So he seems to be involved. He's blocked a few shots. Last night and the night before, I thought he showed a lot of experience in the fact that he's playing 25 minutes, only taking 5 shots. I mean, he's learning how to play, and he knows how to play with other players. And then the most interesting one to Luke is Luka Samanic. Will Hardy really believes in Luka Samanic. Really, really believes in him. And there was a time this year where I thought Luka Samanic was going to replace some of our players in the roster, in the rotation. He's the 19th pick of the draft. The best way I can describe Luka Samanic when I watch him play is until the last 2 nights, he looked tight. He plays tight. If I watch him play in a scrimmage or watch him kind of relax, he looks loose and fabulous and all those things. And then I watched last year when he actually played 30 minutes a night. I think he had a 23.8 rebound game in the second to last game of the year against Denver. He's doing kind of the same thing. You got to be really careful about evaluating, but there's something about him that if he can relax, it's all there. More than Kenny Lofton or Darius Baisley, it is all there, Luka Samanic. He's 6'10", 225, so his body's better than both of them. And then he's actually, again, like his career is a 26% three-point shooter, and even last night I think he was like 1 of 6. So like the 1 of 7. So the question is that it's got to go in. The ball's got to go in at some point. But I think those 3 guys are making a nice statement. It's pretty cool to see right now which of these players are trying to prove themselves to be NBA players. All right, we'll get into it. Sorry, I apologize. I kind of went on that opening thing a little longer than I meant to. That wasn't totally my intention today. Let's get to it. Collin Sexton and Keyonte George. Is that the Jazz backcourt for the future? How concerned am I about Keyonte's turnovers? What star do I guess will be the next one to ask out that the Jazz could pounce on? And what free agents excite me? We'll get to all that as we continue here on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Today's Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Murdoch lineup of cars, unbelievable. The SUVs start with the Kona, they end with the Palisade, and they are, between them, you've got the Tucson, which I'm driving right now and absolutely loving, and the Santa Fe. Absolutely fabulous lineup of SUVs. And then the Sonata and the Elantra have won a bunch of awards, and the 2 electric cars are the Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 6, which have won every award imaginable. For the price, for the bells, for the whistles, for the safety, unequaled. There's nothing that can match Hyundai. So then you have to decide whether or not you like the way they look, and there's nothing that can match the Murdoch service that you're going to get as well. It's all at 4646 South State Street, also in Logan and in Linden. Hey, if you're going to stop by and visit Murdoch and look at any of their cars, why don't you email me first? We'll take care of you and get you all set over at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street. Email me at dlock09@gmail.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Stitch Fix. I am somewhat of a cynic on these kind of things, and I have to admit, Stitch Fix has totally won me over. They sent me 5 articles of clothing, and I liked all 5. I did send 3 of them back because honestly, I just didn't want to spend that much money. But I've been looking for a new pair of jeans forever. They nailed it. I got a button-down shirt, short sleeve button-down shirt that was great that I would not have bought for myself. Their stylist nailed it for me. There was a really cool sweater. I actually had one in the same color. I need another navy blue sweater, like a hole in the head. And so they nailed it. I've always like, do your stylist thing. So here's how it works with Stitch Fix. I went through on Stitch Fix and I did this survey, and then they asked me a bunch of questions whether I like this, like that, looking for this, looking for that. And they nailed it. 5 for 5 on the items they sent me. Check it out, stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. You can send all 5 of them back, pay a cent. And actually, I thought when I did Stitch Fix, I'll try it and then I'll cancel it. I am super excited for my next Stitch Fix shipment because I want to see if they nail it again. And I'm 53. I don't spend a lot of time on this kind of stuff. And if they can suddenly kind of redo my wardrobe so I'm not wearing NBA Nebraska t-shirts and NBA sweatshirts with yogurt on them, then I'll be totally fired up. So go check it out at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. All right, let's continue with our Ask LOJ questions. By the way, have you made the switch yet to Locked On Sports Today? It's available on it's great. Today's a great example of it. It's available on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today 24/7, and on Amazon Fire TV. Here's why it's great today. Because today I already got Locked on Kentucky, Locked on BYU, and Locked on SEC about Mark Pope going to Kentucky. 3 different shows, different perspective, different angles, local experts, all nailing it every which way. It was great. Congratulations to Mark Pope. My wife, who's a sports reporter, way better than me, actually covered Mark Pope at Kentucky when she was in Lexington as a reporter, and he's one of the most favorite people she's ever covered. So kind of a cool little side note story there. All right, let's get back to your questions. Can Keyonte George and Collin Sexton start together in a backcourt? They can. Keyonte's 6'4". Collin plays bigger. They can. They probably will for a while. Is it your long-term answer for a championship? I don't think so. I think you got to be 6'4", 6'7" in your starting backcourt. Jamal Murray, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope are 6'4", 6'4". Derek White, Drew Holiday are 6'4", 6'4", so maybe I'm stretching it, but I do think you've got to be longer than 6'4", 6'1". I do think they're both good ball handlers. I do think that having a secondary ball handler will help Keyonte, and I do think that a primary ball handler will help Collin. So do I think they can play together? Yes. Do I think they can start together in the backcourt? Yes. Do I think it's a long-term answer? Not so sure on that. Am I concerned about Keyonte's turnovers? So I've always had a philosophy about young players that I'd far rather have them do something than not do something. My biggest concern on a young player is when they go play 14 minutes and they have no points, no rebounds, no assists, no turnovers. Like they're not doing anything. There's nothing to fix. So Keyonte's turnovers are all fixable. So in that sense, I'm not concerned about it, and I actually kind of like it. Generally think that young players committing turnovers means they're doing something that positively will open up to opportunities in the future. Secondarily, I've kind of said that I'm not evaluating anything Keyonte does, positive or negative, without Lowry and Jordan Clarkson. I did with Lowry. Benny Anderson's kind of brought up Jordan Clarkson. I just think the burden on him is so big right now, it's not fair to evaluate. I will say he made some big boy moves last night. Like, I saw some stuff that I haven't seen from him in a while last night. Those were some big boy moves last night. Okay. So, no, I'm not concerned because I don't mind turnovers from rookies. 2, I'm not concerned because I'm not going to get worried about Keyonte without Lowry and Jordan Clarkson. Okay? Now, can I speak out of the other side of my mouth for a minute? Can I go to the other side of my mouth? Like, I'm definitely, like, towing both sides of this one. Towing both sides of the rubber, as they say. I was bothered by the 4 turnovers. I guess it was only 3 in the fourth quarter last night. It's a big moment. There's a lot of stuff going on. Maybe I shouldn't be worried about it. But there's 4:52 left. It's 113. And I love the idea of pushing the tempo, but you just can't throw a pass 10 feet in front of Taylor Horton-Tucker in that circumstance in a 113 game with 4:50 left. Like, that concerns me that decision was made. Even if the pass was correct, I'm not sure. Having already made that mistake, I don't love that he gets picked at 3:42 left in the quarter. Fred VanVleet reaches behind him and gets him. And then on the lob down low to Kenny Lofton with 29 seconds left of a 3-point lead, like, the one thing you can't do is turn that over. So I'm not going to just sit here and be a Pollyanna and say I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned because I don't mind young players' turnovers, big picture. I'm not concerned because I think everything I'm asking is a lot. But I will admit that 3 turnovers in the final 5 minutes of a close game last night, if that's going to be – that's a red flag to me a little bit on whether that's your point guard for the future. Okay, Andy's 20, so let's stop with the over analyzation of every game by David. But I'm going to just be honest that like, I got to think the coaching staff's like, whoa. And there was one more in there. There was almost a 4th one. It's a lot. Like, you only have like 8 or 9 turnovers, possessions in the final 5 minutes. Your point guard turning over 3 of them? And all 3 of them were like, so, all right, maybe that's too much on my part. You decide. But I just don't want to be like, no, I'm not concerned. Yeah, last night, 3 of them in the final 5 minutes concern me. Okay, I'll be honest. What stars would you guess are available in the offseason? So I'm going to steal some stuff. Nate Duncan and John Hollinger do the Hollinger and Duncan podcast, which used to be a part of Locked On, and they had Zach Lowe on. No, don't go now. No. Just write it down. Don't leave me now to go listen to that. You got 10 minutes of this show left. Go listen in 10 minutes. Stop. I agree. Hollinger and Duncan with Zach Lowe. You should stop listening to me and go, but give me at least 10 more minutes. We got some more good questions coming on Ask LOJ today. It was great. And they did players most likely by 2025, 26 to be moved. So Donovan Mitchell was obvious choice in there. They also mentioned 4 players, and then part 2 is going to be on Dunked on Prime, which is you can decide whether you want to pay the money, but you get value. Nate does great work. Their number 1 was Trae Young. Their number 2 was Karl Anthony Towns. Their number 3 was Luka Doncic, 25, 26. I don't see it. I thought there were a bunch of great conversations on trading Luka. One of the points was, okay, if Luka wants to be traded to a championship team, whatever team gives up to get Luka means they're not a championship team, right? Because Luka's worth everything. And if you're wondering, like there was a discussion last year, would you trade Lowry to get Luka? Like I would trade every player on our roster and all of our draft picks for Luka, just to let you know. Yeah, no, every one of them. He's going to be the MVP 4 or 5 times in this league. If not, Jokic is going to win it this year. I think he's the right choice, but boy, Luka's getting close. And then the 4th one was Donovan. So Trae Young and Karl Anthony Towns were the 2 stars most likely to be traded. What's fascinating about this is what the market value for Trae Young is. And now first reaction, and hit me on X or comment on the YouTube is like, what is your reaction to Trae Young or a reaction to Karl Anthony Towns? Is that a yes or a no? Would you trade for one? Would you trade for both? If you put Trae Young and Karl Anthony Towns together, by the way, and Lowry Markkanen, and those are your 3 players, like you would score, we'd be the number 1 offense in the NBA. Like that's an interesting, actually, we'd be the number 1 offense in the NBA. You put Lowry Markkanen, Karl Anthony Towns, and Trae Young together. I don't know that you can do those deals without getting rid of holding Lowry, but let's say you could. You would be the number 1 offense in the NBA. And offenses win games. Be pretty interesting. But isolate Trae Young. Actually, it's really funny. I hadn't thought about this. I have some doubts on acquiring Trae Young, and I have some doubts on acquiring Karl Anthony Towns. I have little doubt of acquiring both of them, actually. Like, they're both flawed the same way. So, like, if you actually went and just got them both, you would just decide you're embracing that as your flaw and that you're just going to score 135 points a night and be unstoppable offensively and see what happens. You don't lose a lot if you're good offensively, by the way. Like, I'm super worried about Minnesota in the playoffs because they're just not good enough offensively. But, like, if you're a top 5 offensive team in the NBA right now, you've won 62, 46, 51, 55, or 50 games. Dallas is next at 50. Denver's 56. If you're a top 10, there's only one top 10 offense in the NBA that's below 500. There's only one top 9 offense that's going to win less than 47, 48 games. That's it. That's the future of the Utah Jazz. Go acquire Trae Young and Karl Anthony Towns, and we're just going to score every possession. That's the answer. We'll come back with more thoughts. It is Locked on Jazz. It is your daily podcast of the Utah Jazz. It is an Ask LOJ edition, and we still have more to talk about. You guys are great. Thank you very much for being a part of the program. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel.com/LockedOn. NBA playoffs are here. The fun and excitement of it all. So jump aboard and be a part of it with FanDuel. And here's the deal. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel with the NBA and NHL playoffs is giving you $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. $150 bonus bets, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on the app. It's safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Are you jumping NBA playoffs for your FanDuel? I'm assuming Denver and Boston. Who are the biggest threats to Denver and Boston is one of the questions that we have coming up from everyone. Right now, the NBA Finals championship, Boston is plus 165. Denver's plus 300. Clippers are plus 900. What are the Dallas Mavericks? Plus 1,800. Interesting. It's over at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Today's show is also brought to you by eBay Motors. eBay Motors, the guaranteed fit. Gotta love eBay Motors and what they do for you with your ride or die. Passion, drive, patience. That's the drive for winning championship for your ride or die or your NBA team. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Roof racks, LED headlights, superchargers, all sorts of things. Whether it's speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. Are you ready for this? 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, and you always find exactly what you're looking for because they have eBay Guaranteed Fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. I put in Sprinter van, and now I have everything matched. That's right, me and my van. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, with all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. I should do Ask LOJ every day because you guys are the best. All right. What best free agents available? Well, the best free agent available is Miles Bridges out of Charlotte, who has the domestic violence charges against him. So that gets to be an interesting question. I think we've discussed this in the past. Like, are you willing to be the team that has him? If the NBA's deemed him okay, or does that mean it's okay for everyone? If he's paid his price, which whatever legal and the NBA's probably cost him $100 million, are you okay to be the next team that has him? Super interesting questions. He is probably the number one free agent that's really going to be available, though I have to say, I think if Charlotte didn't trade him at the trade deadline, they're probably keeping him. And they've, on the issue of kind of what we're talking about of the domestic violence, they've already paid the price for him. Tyrese Maxey will be maxed out. I don't think he'll become available. Paul George is not going anywhere. Pascal Siakam is not going anywhere. So then I think the next one gets to be, I don't think Emmanuel Quickley is going anywhere. They just traded for him. Tobias Harris at 31 years old in Philly. They have a bunch of money available. Isaiah Hartenstein's had a great year in New York. DeMar DeRozan is 34. Here's the one I think is really interesting. And this actually, there was another question that came in that kind of matched to this. Is there a free agent you think is most interesting to the Utah Jazz? There's a concept I think is most interesting, and that's the Fred VanVleet contract. So what the Rockets did is they signed Fred VanVleet to a 3-year, $120 million contract. First 40 this year, 40 next year. Next year's not guaranteed, or player option or team option. Would you be interested in the Utah Jazz signing Tobias Harris or DeMar DeRozan for $40 million or some massive number, just so that we're respectable? Right? DeMar DeRozan makes you respectable. DeMar DeRozan scores a bunch of points. You're in games. You're involved. You have an answer late in games. You know where to go. Tobias Harris can't quite do all that, but like, let's say DeMar DeRozan, 34 years old. Chicago probably re-signs him. Would you be interested in signing DeMar DeRozan to a 2-year, $80 million contract, 3-year, $120 million contract that basically third year is not guaranteed? Because then you're respectable. We wouldn't, I can find, I'll be totally honest, unless something happens here crazy. I look at the Western Conference. Minnesota's going to be fine next year unless they have to make a trade. Denver's going to be fine next year. Oklahoma City's probably going to be better next year. Dallas is going to be better next year. Clippers should be fine next year. New Orleans should be better next year. Sacramento should be fine next year unless they blow it up. Lakers and Golden State have another run in them, and Phoenix should be the same as they are this year. Houston may be a little bit better with Jalen Green and Jabari Smith another year and Emmett Udoka. San Antonio will be better with Victor Wembanyama. Right? Like, I have a hard time finding the path for us to go make the playoffs next year because the rest of the West is really, really, really good where we are. Memphis is going to be better next year. And I don't know what Portland's doing. So I actually find it very difficult for us. Like, you put DeMar DeRozan on the Jazz next year, I don't think we're a playoff team. I could be wrong. We were pretty close this year with our guys, but I might be wrong. But I don't know that we make the top 8. At least it's not guaranteed. Let's put it that way. So is that worth it? Because Fred VanVleet to the Rockets gave them respectability, made them decent. They don't make the playoffs. I don't think they make the playoffs next year as that roster is right now either. Was it worth it? Would you do that for the Jazz? It's really interesting. Who do you think the biggest threat to Denver and Boston are before the finals? Oh, interesting. The winner of the Dallas-LA series, Clippers series, is Denver's biggest threat. They're going to see him in the second round. Do you realize Denver may have to do Lakers, Dallas, or Clippers, and then I guess Oklahoma City? I'm not big on Minnesota in the playoffs. I'm big on Minnesota this season, but I'm not big on Minnesota in the playoffs. The 17th ranked offense is a problem to me. Philadelphia is the biggest threat to Boston with Joel Embiid. I don't think Milwaukee's a threat. New York's really good, but I don't think they can beat Boston 4 out of 7. And Orlando and Indiana aren't there yet. Philadelphia is the threat. They may get them in the first round. Isn't that interesting? Boston and Denver's biggest threats might get them both really early. What should Utah Jazz fans be? Oh, wait. That's not the question. Where's this next question? What should Utah Jazz fans be rooting for in the playoffs? Chaos. Chaos, I tell you. Root for chaos. That's what we want. We want teams' foundations to be rocked, so they have to make moves. Have a great weekend. This is Locked on Jazz. Ron and I will be with you after the Jazz game tonight. We now send you the first ever national 24/7 sports streaming Locked on Sports today. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy yourself. It's also available on Amazon Fire TV.